Hey guys, this is Nate from RunDreamAchieve.com. Hope you guys are having a great week of training. Today's video is how I ran a sub 220 marathon, and the reason why I'm making this particular video, and I'm dedicating this video to all marathoners, all runners that are trying to go after a specific time. I want you to understand some of the background that some of the experiences that I've had over the years that helped me eventually run a marathon in under 2 hours and 20 minutes. I ended up finishing as the top American and in 4th place at the 2007 California International Marathon in Sacramento. And I think it's important that I discuss obviously some of my failures and obviously the successes that I've had along the way. And my purpose of this video is to motivate you all, whether you're trying to break 50 minutes for a 10K or you're trying to run under 5 hours for a marathon. Regardless what area, what expertise level you have or where you're currently at, I want you to understand that we all have to start somewhere. I heard a great quote by an entrepreneur by the name of T. Harv Eker, who said it best. He said, "Every master was once a disaster." And oftentimes we always look at athletes that are doing great things and we think that they're just so talented and that they have more than what we have. And I can tell you from my own background that 219 did not happen overnight. I started running in 1992. I started running the 1600 and 3200 and 800 meters when I was in high school. Started off running the mile in 5 minutes and 30 seconds was the first time I ran it, and I ran 11:30 in the 2 mile. Found a love for running thanks to my brother, and pretty much ran competitively at the regional level all the way up to the elite level from 1992 up until late 2018 when I retired from competitive sport. So in terms of the marathon and how this happened and how I ended up running under 2 hours and 20 minutes came with a lot of trial and error. The first time I ran the marathon was at the 2002 New York City Marathon. I was a part of a armed forces team that was running for lung cancer research, so we weren't allowed to start the 2002 New York City Marathon until every runner had crossed the start line. So the big hurdle was obviously the first few miles of the race was bobbing and weaving and trying to speed up. I still remember my first mile was in 16 minutes flat, going over the Verrazano Bridge. And I ended up finishing as the team's top finisher in 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 36 seconds. And if you look up the results from that race, you'll see that the finish time was like 2 hours and 51 minutes, but the clock time was 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 36 seconds. That's because that additional, whatever, about 8 minutes or so of time was the time that we had to wait until every runner had crossed the start line. So that was my first experience. My next attempt was the 2007 Grandma's Marathon. When I was a part of the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program, I was accepted as a conditional athlete in 2007. I did not have the credentials to be at that unit. And I think it's important that, I discuss too, not only the successes but the failures, and knowing that you have to humble yourself sometimes and know that you're not at the level currently where you want to be, but if you continue to stay focused and driven, there's no reason why you can't make it to the next level and you can't make it to where you really want to go in the sport. For me personally, I was wanting to run under 2 hours and 22 minutes for the marathon. When I got to the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program, again, I was a conditional athlete on conditional athlete status, which basically meant they were giving me about a year to train full-time in the Army with no other responsibilities, but just focus on my training. I came to the unit with a PR of 51 minutes and 53 seconds that I ran at the 2004 Army 10-miler, and I had qualified for 2 Armed Forces World Cross Country Championship teams as well. But I only had a personal best of 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 36 seconds from that 2002 New York City Marathon. Going to, as my first competition for the Army World Class Athlete Program, to the 2007 Cherry Blossom 10-miler. I ran a personal best there of 51 minutes and 29 seconds and got like 24th or 27th place, somewhere around there. It was a highly competitive race. The winner ran like 46 minutes. And then ended up going to the 2007 Grandma's Marathon, where I set about a 3.5 minute personal best. I ran 2 hours, 40 minutes, and 2 seconds. But the thing with that is I was always going, and you're probably the same way, you go out too fast when you're not prepared to handle that pace. And that's kind of like what I was doing. Again, I was trying to break 2 hours and 22 minutes. That's the minimum time that I needed to be an official member of the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program at Fort Carson, Colorado and Colorado Springs. So I went out the first half in a new personal best at that time of 1 hour and 10 minutes and 31 seconds. I was still at 2 hours, 28-minute marathon pace through 20 miles, which I hit just over an hour and 53 minutes. But I ended up running 2 hours, 40 minutes and 2 seconds. So as you know, I had a very rough last, 10K, the last 7 miles of the race. I had a really hard time. I was walking and jogging, trying to get to the finish line. I was really hurting. And I was, again, like any other athlete, I was not prepared to sustain the types of paces I was trying to run. And my body simply wasn't ready yet. And that's what I want to stress, and I always stress with all my videos, is patience. We always want results, and it's normal to be competitive and to want and desire that next personal best that you're seeking, whether that's a particular time or maybe just trying to start and finish a marathon, wherever you are in the sport. Especially if you're a marathoner, my respect is to you for sure. So in terms of this progression of how I ended up running 2 hours and 20 minutes, how I ended up eventually running 2 hours, 19 minutes and 35 seconds, was I left the Grandma's Marathon, learned some valuable lessons there, knew that I had to start training. I had to start extending the amount of time I was training at a higher percentage of my maximum heart rate for my long runs. I knew for me to sustain 5 minutes and 25 seconds per mile, which is what 2 hours, 21 minutes and 59 seconds for the marathon is, I was going to have to be able to handle lactic acid more efficiently. And that's why I always stress in videos, you must train much faster than your goal race pace. You have to do a lot of other things right as well, and I'll touch on some of the things I was doing to run 219. And again, I only broke 220 one time in my career. There are other marathoners that you can find on YouTube that have done this several times. I have friends and close friends that are Olympians. One of them is Dan Brown. He ended up running 2:11:35 for the marathon, qualified for 2 Olympic teams for the United States of America. So there are talented athletes. I was not one of those types of athletes. So that's the reason why it's satisfying for me to make these videos, because I understand where you all are at. I had a certain amount of talent, but I had to really rely on my work ethic in this sport. After Grandma's, I ended up going to, again, training to improve upon my half marathon times. And that's why I also want to stress for you all, when you're trying to run a faster marathon, it's very important to always continue to focus on speed and getting faster at the shorter distances, because the faster you can get at the shorter distances is going to make you stronger for the marathon distance. And that's kind of where my mindset was at. I knew I could break 2 hours and 22 minutes, but I knew I had to get faster. I had to continue to develop my speed. I had run 51 minutes for 10 miles. And up until Grandma's, like I said, I went through the first half at Grandma's in 1:10, just over an hour and 10 minutes, set a new personal best, so I was making some strides, but I just was not able to close as fast as I needed to. So I had to go back and do my homework and really get stronger for that second half of the race. So I went to the Philadelphia half marathon, ended up running a new personal best of 1 hour, 7 minutes and 6 seconds. I had also set a new personal best for 10 miles, hitting the 10-mile point in that race in 50 minutes and 54 seconds. So I knew after that point that I was able to do it. I knew I had the potential to run under 2 hours and 22 minutes, but I just had to get it right. So again, for you all, know that there's ups and downs in the sport, but don't get discouraged. Just continue to stay motivated. Be tenacious in what you're doing in your training, but also be smart, because you know that great results take time. Again, it's very hard. It's very easy to get discouraged and second guess yourself when results don't come that quickly, and sometimes they don't come in this sport. And I'll touch on that here after in a little bit too. But that 107.06 in Philadelphia definitely gave me a lot of motivation and excitement. But I knew I couldn't rely on that 107.06. They say you're only as good as your last race. So I went back to Colorado, continued to train at altitude, continued to really work on my speed, working on training well under 5-minute mile pace for the mile repeats. I was doing, when I was leading into Sacramento, I got to a point where I was doing between 6 1-mile repetitions between 444 and 448 per rep by 2-minute rest in between each. Now, I didn't just start like that. So again, whatever your goal race pace is, you have to start somewhere. So earlier on in your training phase, the first few weeks are going to suck. You're going to have a hard time. You're not going to be able to sustain the pace. But as you get fitter and your body and your heart doesn't have to work as hard and you're able to clear that lactic acid faster than it's building up, you're able to sustain faster paces. You're able to recover quicker. So again, your paces increase and your recovery decreases. So again, it's how you set up your training. It's a lot about patience. It's a little bit about luck. If you train hard and you work hard, you're going to have a higher success rate, and you're going to have a better likelihood that you're going to have a lot of luck on your side. I don't necessarily believe in so much luck as I do hard work and belief. Okay, so don't let up. Don't give up. The next race was the Chicago Marathon in 2007. It was my last attempt. It was my last chance to qualify for the 2008 USA Olympic Trials Marathon Championships that were held in New York City, and they were going to be held in November. So I had a lot stacked up against me. Chicago was held, I think, around October 6th or 7th. And unfortunately, that particular time, it happened on the hottest temperatures of the race's history. If you look up some online of some of the results and some of the temperatures of that day, you'll understand what happened. But I am not a hot weather runner. I don't know about you all, but I am a cold weather runner. Always have been. Had issues running in the heat when I was in high school. But I had a very difficult day that day. I went out the first half in 1 hour and 11 minutes. And I remember Lisa Rainsberger, the 1985 Boston Marathon champion, who was my coach for 3 years. She was at the half marathon point, and I tell you, if the Army was not funding my race that day, I probably would have called it at the half marathon point. I had a very hard time finishing that race, but I knew I had to finish. You know, I was flown out there. I had everything was provided to me, so I knew I had to finish the race, even if it was going to be a bad time. So I went from 1:11 at the half, and I finished in 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 54 seconds. So as you all know, it was a very rough last 15 miles or so. It was a combination of walking and jogging the entire way until I got to the finish line. So I understand what it feels like to really run way off your capability. This is a tough sport. The marathon is not like a 5K or 10K. It's a much longer race. It requires more mental strength. It requires a lot of things to go right. Course, you know, if you're trying to run a fast time, naturally you want to run on a flat or fast course. With that disappointment, again, it's important for me to discuss failures, not just successes. And everybody loves to talk about their successes, but I've had a lot of failures along the way as well. So I want you all to know that it didn't just happen. This sub 220 marathon for me didn't just happen overnight. Again, I'm not an athlete with a lot of talent. I have a lot of work ethic. You can put me up against anybody in the world. I don't care where they're from. Elite level athletes, I will train with them and do whatever it takes. I've always had that attitude that if I'm going to set my goal, I'm going to set my mind to something, I'm going to go all out for it. And you have to have that. As you're training now through into 2021, there's a lot of obstacles in your way. There's no question about it. What you all are dealing with right now, trying to prepare for races with what's going on in the world, I didn't have that when, you know, from 1992 all the way to 2018, I didn't have that. So my respect is to you all, and I hope these videos that I make are helpful for you. and that you understand that great performances do not happen overnight, and they didn't happen overnight for me. But as I moved from the Chicago Marathon running 2:51:55, the disappointment obviously of not qualifying for the 2008 USA Olympic trials was it was tough. But I also knew that I came to the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program to accomplish a mission, and that was to break 2 hours and 22 minutes and be a part of that unit. And that's what I did. 3 months later, at the California International Marathon in Sacramento, which was held the first week of December, I came in, like I said, a 2:40:02 marathoner with a 1:06 half marathon personal best. And I ended up running the race of my life that day. Everything went perfect. The morning of the race, I was relaxed. The temperatures was around 40 to 41 degrees at the start of the race. I hit the first. I pretty much led the race up until about the 20 to 21 mile mark in the race, running with 5 Kenyan athletes. One from Canada, one from Africa, or one from Russia. And Laban Moibin of Kenya ended up winning in 2:14, like 2:14:35. John Kathoga of Kenya finished second in like 2:14:58. The Canadian, Charles Bedley was his name. He ended up running 2:16 for third. I ran 2:19:35 for fourth. And the Russian who came in with a personal best of 2:12, way faster than I had ever run, and obviously much better than me, ended up finishing fifth place in 2:23. So again, sometimes it just takes time and everything has to fall into line. But in terms of the workouts, if those are some of the things you guys are wondering, how did this guy, how did Nate, who had a little bit of talent, but how did he go from 2:43:36 down to 2:19:35? A lot of it was just really focusing again on that goal race pace. I knew for me to sustain 5:25 mile pace, I had to train at around 4:30 mile pace. I had to get used to doing speed workouts on the track, going at that type of pace so I could get 5:25 mile pace to feel easier. I ran longer. I got out to 30 miles for my longest run. I don't recommend going that far because really you can get just as much benefit off of a 20 to 22 miler as really you can get out 30 miles. That's a little too far, but I was kind of pushing the limits of what I was wanting to do. And that 30 miler actually wasn't until 2011 when I ran my second fastest marathon in 2:26:42 at the 2011 Monumental Indianapolis Marathon. So that's kind of my background in terms of how I ran a sub 2:20 marathon. I want you all to know that it took me from 1992 all the way to 2007 to run that time. So I'm not like some of these other athletes out there that do train hard, that do have a lot of talent, but they can consistently run phenomenal times, which what seems like every 6 months or so. And I was one of those athletes that just really had a hard time getting the marathon down right, but for that day, everything worked out. I knew from my personal best at 10 miles at 50:54, the 1:07:06 half I had run, I was definitely ready to break 2 hours and 22 minutes for the marathon. And in fact, at the California International Marathon, my first half, me and the leaders hit the first half marathon in that race in 1:07:09. Which was only 3 seconds off my personal best for the half marathon. So I was way in over my head, but I knew I had done a perfect taper. I knew that on that particular day I was rested. The weather conditions were perfect. It was very light wind. It was only 42 degrees at the start, and I had great competition. I didn't hit a wall that day. And again, I always talk about training the body to burn fat at race pace and conserve those carbohydrates for the latter stages of your race. This is so critical, so very important to train. Do those longer tempo runs. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be able to start your first few weeks of your training block doing 10-mile tempos immediately. Start off doing 2 to 3 miles. Allow your body time to adapt to that, and then extend it. Start doing 5 to 6 miles, Where if you're other parts of the world, 8K to 10K. Extend the duration of your tempo runs as well. And again, you want to do those tempo runs anywhere from 15 to 25 seconds slower than your goal marathon race pace. And it's going to vary from athlete to athlete. Okay, so again, it was a very tough process. It's something I'm very proud of, but it took a lot out of me. It took most of my, I call them the monkey years, because when you're so immersed in doing something you want to do so badly, everything else seems to take a back seat. And for me personally, my life was running. All I was doing was running, pretty much. I got up to 142 miles a week. I was in the Army. I was doing other things. I was going to school. You can balance all of these things. It's just how badly you want to do it. I don't care if you're a 5K athlete, or you're training for the 10K, or you're training for the marathon, or where you're currently at in the sport. How badly do you want success? You can be good, you can be average, or you can be great. It's your choice. And at the end of the day, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, am I doing all I can possibly do? And now looking back, I know that I have zero regrets. I did the very best I could. I tell my story here just to encourage you all, not to certainly brag, because like I said, I've been beaten many times. I've had great races, and I've had a lot of poor races. Like I said, my three fastest halves were the 107.06 I ran in Philadelphia, my first half in the 219, which I hit in 107.09, and I ran a 108.44 at the 2011 Germantown half marathon in Tennessee. And Micah Tyrop from Kenya ran 108.28 to beat me that day. So I understand how to run reasonably quick for the half marathon, and eventually, like I said, I ran under 2 hours and 20 minutes for the marathon. But the most important thing for me is really giving back and telling you all the story, just to kind of encourage you and motivate you to let you know that here's somebody that ran from 1992 all the way to 2007 and was able to finally achieve a sub 220 marathon. So I don't think I'm any different than you or any other athlete. It's just a matter of how badly you want to do it, regardless of what your event is, and regardless of what particular time you're going for, whether that's a 5-hour marathon, a 4-hour, 3-hour, a sub 230, or even a sub 220. It's how badly you want it, and how long are you willing to train in order to get those results that you're looking for. So I truly hope this video has been encouraging to you all in some way. In terms of how I ran a sub 220 marathon, again, I was focusing training well under 5-minute mile pace, running at reasonably high volume, but not crazy high volume. Like I said, I got up to 142 miles a week, but that was after running 219. I was running between 85 miles and 90 miles a week when I was leading into the Sacramento California International Marathon in 2007. So reasonably high volume, but training well under goal marathon race pace, coupled with longer tempo runs, and then harder, faster, long runs, alternating those long, like I talk about in the other videos, running one weekend at a faster pace, followed the next weekend by jogging, absolutely relaxed pace. So again, it was ebbs and flows, but that's how I broke a 220 marathon. So I hope this has been helpful for you all. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know what's on your mind in regards to the marathon and what event you're actually going for in 2021. And I'm looking forward to hearing your story. I think it's really important that we share each other's experiences, and I hope this video has been motivating for you all, and you understand that you don't need as much talent as you need your work ethic. If you're lacking talent, you have to make up for it with your work ethic. No one's going to hold your hand. No one's going to tell you to go out and do that double run. If you know you need to be doing doubles, and you know you need to get out the door and put in that workout, you need to be motivated. You need to continue to rely on your work ethic and what it is you're going for in the marathon distance. So I wish you all the best, and just stay tenacious, stay persistent in what you're doing. Nothing can take the place of hard work. And if you have a level of talent, and you have a little bit of talent, but and you have to rely on your heart and your work ethic, you're going to have to work harder, and you're going to have, and your results may come a lot longer down the road, as opposed to somebody with a lot of talent. So it's again coming back to what it is you're wanting and how badly do you want to do it. So I wish you all the best, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.